Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
Today we're going to tackle something pretty big. The connection between body, mind, soul, and spirit.
It's a fascinating topic for sure.
Definitely. We've got this great article from the Spiritual Seek website called What is the Connection Between Body, Mind, Soul, and Spirit to guide us.
Sounds like a good roadmap for this journey.
Absolutely. So let's start with something we're all familiar with. Our bodies. You know, we often think of the body as this kind of like biological machine.
Right, a complex system of cells and organs and all that.
Exactly. But the article takes it a step further. It brings up this idea that the body isn't just like a passive vessel.
It's more like it actively shapes how we experience the world, right?
Like our senses, how we move, all of that influences our perceptions and interactions.
It reminds me of that philosopher Merleau-Ponty. He talked about this idea that the body isn't just an object, it's part of how we understand reality. That's a pretty profound way to look at it. So it's not just about biology, it's about how our physical being, like, informs our consciousness.
Exactly. And that leads us to the mind, which is often seen as separate from the body. But is it really?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
I mean, think about it. When you exercise, your mood changes, right?
Yeah, totally. I always feel so much better after a good run. It's like magic.
Exactly. That's the body affecting the mind.
Okay, so they're definitely linked. But what about the other way around? Can our minds affect our bodies?
Absolutely. Ever notice how you get a headache when you're stressed?
All the time.
Right. Or how chronic stress can actually lead to things like high blood pressure.
Wow, so ignoring our mental health can have real physical consequences.
There's no doubt about it. The mind-body connection is a two-way street.
It makes you realize how important it is to take care of both, right?
Couldn't agree more.
All right, so we've talked about the body and we've touched on the mind. But let's dive a little deeper into what we mean by the mind.
Good point. It's more than just our brains, right?
Right. So what exactly are we talking about?
It's like the seat of consciousness, you know? Where all our thoughts, memories, perceptions, even our emotions all come together.
Okay, so it's like the command center for everything we experience.
Pretty much. It's where we make sense of the world, make decisions, all of that.
Now, the article mentions Freud's model of the psyche, the id, ego, and superego. I remember learning about this in school, but it's been a while. Can you give us a quick refresher?
Sure. Freud basically saw the mind as this battleground with these three forces constantly interacting.
Okay, a mental wrestling match.
Kind of. So you've got the id, which is like the impulsive child in us, always wanting immediate gratification.
The I want it now part of us.
Exactly. Then there's the superego, which is like the strict parent, all about rules and morals.
Always telling us what we should and shouldn't do.
Yep, that's the superego.
Yeah.
And then, caught in the middle, you have the ego.
Poor ego.
Right. The ego's job is to try to balance the id and the superego to find some kind of compromise.
So it's like a constant negotiation between our desires and our conscience.
You got it. Think of it this way. You're craving that second piece of cake. That's your id talking. But you know you probably shouldn't eat it. That's your superego chiming in. And the ego's the one trying to figure out a solution.
Haha. I can definitely relate to that. But is this Freudian model still relevant today?
Well, it's certainly a classic for a reason. While modern psychology has expanded on it, the core idea that there are different forces at play within our minds is still very much relevant.
That makes sense. I mean, we all feel that internal struggle sometimes, right? Between what we want and what we know we should do.
Absolutely. We're constantly navigating between our desires, our values, and the choices we make. It's all part of being human.
Okay, so we've got this complex mental landscape going on, but now let's move into even deeper territory. The soul.
Ah, the soul. Now we're getting into more mysterious territory, wouldn't you say?
Definitely a bit more mystical.
It's often described as the essence of who we are, something that goes beyond our physical bodies. But interpretations of the soul vary widely, you know, across different cultures and philosophies.
Right, it's not a one-size-fits-all definition.
Exactly.
The article mentions the spiritual perspective, where the soul is seen as immortal, connected to something larger than ourselves. This idea pops up in a lot of religions, like Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and many others.
Right. And it's a powerful concept, this idea that there's more to us than just this physical existence.
It really makes you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
For sure. And then you've got philosophical perspectives on the soul.
Like Plato, right? Didn't he believe the soul was on this journey towards truth, even after death?
Exactly. He believed that the soul continued to exist and seek knowledge even after the body was gone.
Wow. It's amazing how these ancient ideas still resonate with us today.
They really do. And speaking of influential thinkers, the article also mentions Carl Jung, who had a more psychological take on the soul.
Right, Jung. He talked about the collective unconscious, if I remember correctly. What was that all about?
Essentially, he believed there's this kind of like shared reservoir of universal archetypes and patterns that connect all of humanity.
Whoa. So like a deep well of shared experiences that we all tap into.
Exactly. From his perspective, our individual souls are linked to something much larger, something that transcends our individual lives.
So whether you look at it from a spiritual perspective or a psychological one, the soul points to this deeper dimension of who we are.
It's like this hidden, essential part of ourselves that connects us to something bigger, something beyond the everyday.
Definitely makes you wonder about the nature of reality and our place in it.
For sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the body, the mind, the soul. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, the spirit. How does that fit into all of this?
Well, think of the spirit as like an elevated state of consciousness. It's often associated with unity, transcending duality, and experiencing a profound connection to something much larger than ourselves.
So it's about like tapping into a higher level of awareness.
Exactly.
I'm really curious to hear more about how different traditions approach this concept of spirit. Can you give us some examples?
Of course. So Eastern philosophies like Advaita Vedanta and Buddhism, they view the spirit as our true nature. They see it as unburdened by the limitations of the ego.
So it's about realizing that interconnectedness of all things, breaking free from the illusion of separation.
Precisely. And you know, that reminds me of that quote by Eckhart Tolle from his book, The Power of Now. He says, "The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about it."
Wow, that's a powerful thought.
Right. And it really aligns with this idea of transcending the ego to find peace and unity.
It's like by letting go of those negative thought patterns, we can tap into something deeper, something more connected.
Exactly. And the article also explores mystical traditions like Sufism and Kabbalah, where direct experiences with the divine are really central.
I've always been fascinated by those traditions.
They're full of such rich symbolism and imagery. Think of Rumi's poetry, for example, and that beautiful metaphor of the entire ocean in a drop. It perfectly captures this idea of unity and vastness existing within each of us.
Such a beautiful image. It really speaks to the potential for profound experiences when we tap into that dimension of ourselves.
Absolutely. And it highlights the power of metaphor and symbolism in conveying these profound spiritual truths.
Okay, so we've got all these elements: body, mind, soul, and spirit. But are they really separate, or is there like a deeper interconnectedness?
That's a great question, and that's actually where we'll pick up in part 2 of this deep dive. We've laid the groundwork by exploring each of these elements individually. Now we're going to delve into how they interact, how they influence each other, and how they ultimately shape our understanding of what it means to be human.
All right, welcome back. I don't know about you, but my mind is still buzzing from that ocean in a drop metaphor.
It's pretty powerful, right? Makes you think about those hidden depths we all carry within.
Definitely. But, last time we left off on a pretty big question.
Oh yeah, the big one. How do all these pieces, body, mind, soul, spirit, actually fit together?
Exactly. It's one thing to understand them separately, but how do they work together? How do they create this whole human experience?
Right. It's all about that interplay.
Yeah.
And the article gives us some pretty cool examples. Like, have you ever noticed how meditation or mindfulness can make you feel more spiritually aware?
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like those practices create a bridge between your mind and something bigger.
Exactly. Like a doorway to something deeper.
I know when I'm meditating regularly, I feel more connected to something beyond myself, more at peace.
It's like you're tapping into a different source of energy, something beyond your everyday worries.
But can it work the other way around? Can our spiritual beliefs actually impact our mental and physical well-being?
Absolutely. The article talks about how strong spiritual beliefs can help people be more resilient, especially during tough times.
It's like having a deeper well to draw from, right? Like a source of inner strength.
Exactly. Think about people who find comfort in their faith when they're going through loss or hardship. It can make a huge difference.
It's like tapping into a different level of support, something beyond our individual capacity to cope.
Right. And, speaking of coping, we were talking earlier about the mind-body connection and how stress can affect us physically.
Yeah, and the article brought up something called psychosomatic medicine. What's that all about?
Well, it's basically this fascinating field that looks at how unresolved emotional conflicts can show up as physical symptoms.
Okay, so like if you're always bottling up your anger or sadness, it can manifest as physical problems.
Exactly. It's like your body is trying to communicate something, trying to tell you that something's out of balance. It could be headaches, digestive issues, even chronic pain.
Wow. So our bodies are literally talking to us, trying to get our attention.
There are, and it's so important to listen to those signals. Don't just brush them off.
No kidding. It makes you realize how important it is to pay attention to your emotional well-being, not just your physical health.
It's all connected, right?
Absolutely. But it's not all doom and gloom. The article also talks about how taking care of your physical health can actually have a positive impact on your mental and emotional well-being.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I know when I'm eating well, exercising, getting enough sleep, I just feel better overall, more energy, more positive, more able to handle whatever comes my way.
It's like you create this positive feedback loop. Taking care of your body nourishes your mind and spirit. It all works together.
It's that interconnectedness again. Okay, so we need to honor all these parts of ourselves, body, mind, soul, spirit, for true well-being. But before we move on, there was this one concept in the article that really caught my eye.
Which one?
Reality transurfing.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Reality transurfing. Now we're getting into some really mind-bending stuff.
It sounded pretty wild.
It is. It's a concept developed by this guy named Vadim Zeland, and it basically challenges our usual ideas about reality. He says that reality isn't fixed, that it's more like a fluid, ever-changing landscape.
Hold on, so it's not set in stone. He's saying there are multiple possibilities, multiple realities.
That's the basic idea. Zeland says our current reality is basically a reflection of our dominant thoughts and beliefs.
So, like, if we want to experience a different reality, we need to change our thoughts.
Exactly. It's about shifting your internal frequencies, almost like tuning into a different radio station.
That sounds pretty amazing, but also a little out there. But how do you actually do that?
It's about conscious choice and aligning your energy with what you want to experience. Zeland talks about letting go of limiting beliefs and those negative thought patterns that keep us stuck.
So instead of focusing on what we don't want, we focus on what we do want.
Exactly. Setting clear intentions, visualizing the reality you desire, feeling the emotions as if it's already happening.
Like really believing it's possible.
Yes. And trusting that the universe will work out the details.
Okay, I have to admit I'm intrigued, but is there like any scientific evidence to back this up?
Well, it's not exactly mainstream science.
Yeah.
But there are some interesting parallels with quantum physics, which suggest that consciousness plays a role in shaping reality.
You mean those experiments where observing a particle actually changes its behavior?
Exactly. It points to the power of observation and intention.
Yeah, the quantum realm is a pretty mind-blowing place. But if reality is so fluid and we have the power to shape it, why do we often feel stuck?
Zeland has an answer for that, too. He calls them pendulums. Basically, these are energy structures that are created by collective thought patterns, societal norms.
So these pendulums are like invisible forces that influence our realities.
Right. They can be really powerful, keeping us locked into certain patterns and ways of thinking.
Okay, so how do we break free? How do we escape those energy traps?
That's what we'll explore in Part 3. We'll dive into the specific techniques of reality transurfing, how to navigate these pendulums, set clear intentions, and ultimately, how to become conscious creators of our own reality.
Okay, I'm back and ready to transurf some realities. You left us hanging with those techniques for navigating these alternate realities. So spill the beans. How do we do it?
All right, let's unpack Zeland's toolbox. One technique that really captures the essence of reality transurfing is called sliding. Imagine you're at the top of a giant slide, right? But this slide has multiple lanes, and each lane represents a different potential reality.
Okay, I'm picturing it. A giant slide with infinite lanes, each leading to a different version of my life. So how do I choose which lane I want to slide down?
That's where intention comes in. Zeland says it's all about clarity. You need to know what you want to experience and set that intention with, like, real conviction.
So it's not enough to just kind of wish for something. You have to be super clear about what you want.
Exactly. Write it down, visualize it, really feel the emotions you would feel if it were already happening.
So it's not just thinking it. It's about, like, embodying it, feeling it in your core.
Exactly. It's about aligning your energy with that desired reality. And as you slide down your chosen lane, you let go of any resistance or doubt that might be holding you back.
Makes sense. But what about those pendulums you talked about? The ones that can keep us trapped in realities we don't want? How do we avoid those while we're sliding?
Good question. Zeland has a technique for that too. It's called importance reduction. It's about recognizing when we're giving too much power to things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say you're stuck in traffic
Right.
and you feel that frustration building up. That frustration is a sign that you're giving that traffic jam way too much importance.
Oh, I'm definitely guilty of that. I can let those little annoyances really get to me.
We all do. But in that moment, try taking a step back and ask yourself, is this really that important? In the grand scheme of things.
I guess not when you put it that way. So it's about shifting your perspective,
Right.
not letting those external circumstances control how you feel.
Exactly. By reducing the importance you give to it, you loosen its grip on your energy. And this applies to bigger things too.
Like what?
Think about work deadlines, relationship challenges, even those fears and insecurities we all carry around.
Okay. Yeah, those can definitely feel overwhelming sometimes.
By consciously reducing the importance we give to them, we free up energy for more positive realities to come into our lives. It's not about ignoring problems, it's about choosing how much power you give them.
I like that. It's empowering. But how do we actually shift our energy in a practical way?
Seelan talks about this idea called the coordination of intention. It basically means making sure your thoughts and actions are in alignment with what you want to create.
Okay, so like if I want to attract abundance, but I'm constantly complaining about lack, that's not going to work.
Exactly. It's like sending mixed signals to the universe. You've got to get those thoughts and actions in sync.
So reality transleafing is all about becoming a conscious creator, right? Aligning your inner and outer worlds to manifest your goals.
You got it. And you know what? All this sounds super powerful. Zeland also emphasizes the importance of trusting your intuition.
Or gut feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He sees intuition as this inner compass that's always guiding us towards realities that are in alignment with our true selves.
So if something feels off or
Yeah.
just not right, it's a sign to pay attention.
Absolutely. Listen to that inner voice. It might be telling you to tweak your intention, try a different approach, or just trust the process. Reality transurfing is all about experimentation and figuring out what works for you.
Wow, this whole deep dive has been mind-blowing. We started with the body, explored the mind, went into those deeper realms of the soul, and now we've even ventured into this wild world of reality transurfing.
It's been quite the journey, right? But it just goes to show how all these seemingly separate concepts are interconnected. They each offer a piece of the puzzle that makes up human existence.
And even if some of these ideas seem out there, I think the takeaway is that we have more power to shape our reality than we might realize.
I totally agree. It's about being open to new possibilities, questioning our assumptions, and ultimately taking responsibility for the realities we create.
Well said. And to our listeners, keep exploring these ideas, trust your gut, and don't be afraid to experiment. There are infinite possibilities out there just waiting to be discovered. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring.